To the police, the sudden spate of violent murders across Seoul seemed puzzlingly different, but to the killer, Yoo Young-chul, they all made perfect sense. For 10 months, his murder spree shocked and stumped South Korean police. In the end, it wasn't investigators who brought him down, but workers from the massage parlor where he found victims. Yoo entered the world on April 18, 1970, amidst the humble surroundings of Gochang County, South Korea. From the outset, life presented its challenges as he grappled with the stark realities of poverty. Growing up in such circumstances was not easy, especially as he endured bullying at school. These experiences took a toll on his mental well-being, shaping his perspective on life and society. The absence of a stable family environment added another layer of complexity to Yoo's upbringing. His parents' separation shortly after his birth meant that he was raised by his grandparents during his formative years. However, this arrangement was not permanent, as circumstances led him to relocate to Seoul to live with his father. It wasn't long till his lawless side started to come out, even though it was to provide for his family. His history with crime started early in his high school years. His extensive official criminal record began as early as 1988, at the young age of 18. He was arrested multiple times on counts of theft. Other than that, he was also caught selling child pornography. In 1991, he received a 10-month prison sentence for theft-related offenses. 2 years down the line, on June 23, 1993, he tied the knot with his girlfriend, and nearly a year after that, they welcomed their first and only son. By 1998, he found himself in legal trouble again, this time for identity theft and forgery. His scheme involved impersonating a law enforcement officer and exploiting his false authority to coerce money from individuals. Consequently, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 years behind bars. Yoo saw himself as a savior and thought he was trying to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor in Korea. Growing up as an extremely poor young boy, his hatred for the rich wasn't something new. But his loathsomeness for women began when his wife divorced him while he was serving time in prison. He put it in his own words as, "Women should not be sluts and the rich should know what they have done." After his release from Seoul Detention Center in 2003, he began to plot his first murder and started exploring different methods on how to strike his victims. He chose to customized hammer, which he could easily grip in his hands. In the beginning, he tried his method on animals. He would gather some stray dogs and then dogs by striking them with a hammer. After perfecting his method, he struck for the first time only 13 days after his release. His victims were Lee Deok-su, a Sukanyang University professor, and his 68-year-old wife, Lee Yoon. Okay, they lived in the posh Seoul neighborhood. He attacked them with his hammer and staged it as a robbery-motivated murder by trashing the couple's closet, even though he didn't take anything, which was weird for a robbery crime scene. His shoe prints were found at the crime scene, which were later linked to other murders. He usually attacked during the morning as he knew the elderly would be at home, just like he did in the Gugidong murders. He broke into their house at 10:40 a.m., first who was an 83-year-old woman. Then the homeowner's wife came down, and he bludgeoned her to death after asking who else was in the house, to which she replied her son and her husband. He found the son and he couldn't find the husband, so then he proceeded to trash the house to stage it as a robbery. Obviously, by seeing the nature of crime, this soon turned into national news, and the people of Korea were taken aback by these ghastly murders and the cruelty of the killer. After this, he broke into the house of a local millionaire and beat his wife by taking her to the bathroom. He fled the scene, and the wife survived but was pronounced dead after succumbing to her wounds in the hospital. His next target was the home of Kim Jong-seok. He killed the homeowner. The housekeeper had a baby which she was trying to protect, so he took the housekeeper away. While he was trying to make it look like a robbery, he cut his hand and started to bleed. To get rid of his DNA from the scene of the crime, he set the house on fire while the baby was still in the house. Thankfully, the baby survived and was rescued by the owner's daughter-in-law. In late 2003, he started dating an escort, and as a result, for some time he stopped. However, once his girlfriend came to know about his past life, his criminal record, and his previous marriage, she told him to never see her again, and they broke up. Yoo at this point felt heartbroken and betrayed, and this increased his anger towards women even more, and he started targeting prostitutes in his next spree. Even though most of his targets were women and elderly rich people, one of his victims was a street vendor who sold him fake Viagra. After the vendor packed up his stuff, Yoo posed as a police officer and tried to arrest him. He handcuffed him and put him in the back seat of his van. The vendor at this point knew that Yoo wasn't a police officer, as he had noticed that he wasn't with a partner. After this, Yoo started He thought he was dead, but the vendor was still alive and kicked him, after which Yoo hammer. This pattern was unusual for the Raincoat Killer, and after this murder, he entered the second part of his killing spree. From the beginning of 2004, he started targeting prostitutes. They were an easy target, as no one would report them missing since they kept their real identities hidden. He would ask for women with specific physical traits, such as short height, not being too fat so he could easily He would call the escort services and tell them his preferences after an escort arrived. He would take her to the bathroom and first show affection. Then he would handcuff her and he would with his jackknife and then and flush them. You would off body into 16 or 18 pieces, so it would be easier to dispose of the body. He selected his victims by calling multiple escort services every 2-3 days, which led to the deaths of 9 escort girls. At one point, he ordered an X-ray of his whole body so he could understand the anatomy of the body better and figure out a better way to attack his victims and dismember their bodies. He took advantage of the anonymity of this. After victims, he would hang them to dry. During this time, he started developing cannibal tendencies and would eat his victims' liver and other organs. It was his messed-up way of cleansing his soul and clearing his mind. The pursuit of the Raincoat Killer. After a long time of his ongoing killings, he was finally caught, not by the police but by the owner of the escort services he would often call. He made careless mistakes, due to which he ended up getting caught. The first one was calling an escort service with his victim's phone, which was very out of the blue for him as well. The second one was that he would often change his aliases to call those massage parlors, but they were mostly owned by the same man named Mr. No. He noticed the pattern that whenever the number 6523 would call, the girls would not turn back up. They would be missing or not come to work the next day. He contacted other massage parlor owners, and they confirmed his suspicions about that number. They said that when that number would call, the escorts would go missing. After getting his suspicions confirmed by other massage parlor owners, Mr. No contacted Mr. Young from the Mobile Investigation Unit. A few days later, Yoo called again and wanted to hire an escort. After noticing the number, Mr. No informed Mr. Young, and they set up men in different allies and parks. Yoo did not like the woman they sent and complained she was too tall. Obviously, he had a stereotype, which was that women were easy to dismember, so he sent her back, and finally, he approved of the third woman they sent. He disclosed his location, and the authorities apprehended him. When they caught him, he was chewing business cards. When they checked his phone, the last 4 digits were 6523. After being handcuffed, he was escorted to the station where he faced theft allegations due to insufficient evidence. Despite his surprisingly neat apartment, he attempted to feign an epileptic fit, enabling his escape when left unattended. However, he was recaptured hours later. This time, he confessed to 26 murders, a common practice in Korean criminal proceedings at the time. He revealed disturbing details, including conversing with victims for an hour before their demise. He agreed to guide police to the disposal sites of victims' bodies and disclosed his use of a raincoat to conceal his identity, earning him the moniker of the Raincoat Killer. The Korean police officers would not exchange information between different stations. Only if they succeeded in apprehending someone would they inform other districts, because promotions were more important to them than catching serial killers. Had they informed each other of his mistakes, they would have ended up catching him way earlier than this, and there would have been way fewer murders. This lack of communication became the reason for his late arrest. His trial was not easy since corporal punishment was abolished in Korea. He appeared in court in September 2004, and he was charged with 21 counts of murder. He apologized to the victims' families, but he also confessed that he had no intention of stopping the killings, and if he hadn't been caught, he would have continued killing more people. The victims' families were hurt by this statement, and they were compensated by the government since he failed to make a proper apology to them, since there is a law that says if the criminal is unable to compensate the families for the crimes, the government would. He even said the women deserved to be caught by him. He refused to return to court and tried to kill himself before his hearing, but was stopped by the guard and hence saved. He had a bad attitude during his hearings and even tried to charge towards the judges. At one point, he tried to attack a spectator who was cursing him, but later he promised not to cause any further disturbances. Prosecutors requested a death penalty for Yoo, and he himself thanked them for this request. As a result, Yoo Young-chul was sentenced to death in December 2004 for 20 counts of murder. Currently, Yoo is serving time in the Seoul detention center, with more and more people rooting for a death sentence after learning about his crimes. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets behind one of history's most notorious figures, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating content. Remember to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest videos. We'd love to hear your thoughts, theories, or even personal experiences related to such cases, so please leave a comment below and let's start a discussion.